Hello, welcome everyone. We are going to wait a few minutes until everyone gets into the webinar and then we can get started. So we'll just give it another minute or two, settle in, grab a glass of water, perhaps a coffee if it's something that you need for the rest of your evening. I could use a cup of coffee right now, actually.
Tracy, admit it, you were going to say wine.
No, I wasn't. I was going to say, I said coffee. Well, everyone, we're so excited that you're here with us. First of all, congratulations. Welcome to our Orange family. We cannot wait to see you on campus in August. We're so excited tonight to be talking about our Center for Disability Resources. I am thrilled that we have the opportunity to be joined by 3 experts in the field and really an opportunity to really get their point of view and learn more about this subject area. So I'm going to introduce you to them in just a second, but I'm going to let you know right now that throughout this presentation, if you have any questions, if there's anything that you want answered, perhaps live at the end of the session, you can throw those questions into the Q&A feature in the webinar. So you can definitely go ahead and do that. We also have our colleagues behind the scenes who are answering questions too. So if it's a little bit of a more private question, feel free to throw that into the chat or into the Q&A function too, and we can get to that question. Anything we're not able to answer, we'll be able to connect with you individually to give you some more information. So as I said, I'm thrilled to be joined by 3 of my colleagues, Paula Pizenti-Perez, who's our director for the Center of Disability Resources, Judy Knopp, who's an assistant director, and Karen Toole, coordinator for academic support. So I'm going to go ahead and put on the presentation and let Paula take it away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tracy, and thank you for having us. And welcome. I see we have a good amount of folks here, and I'm really pleased that you're interested in hearing more about our center, the Center for Disability Resources. So basically, I'll give you the breakdown. There's 3 of us, and we're going to be breaking down this presentation. First, I'll kind of give you the broad look, our mission and our vision, a look at some data figures that we have regarding our students. And then Judy's really going to get into the meat in terms of transition and things to think about. And of course, how we engage students and how we operate. And then Karen will finish up with touching on some of our academic supports that are available. And then at the end, we'll be available for any additional questions that you might have. So next slide. You'll probably have to hit another slide after that. We'll go next. All right. So first off, I just want to let you know what you're looking at here is our entire team. So I know there's a lot of names on here, but I think one of the most important things that you should think about as you're making decisions, and if disability and disability resources is important, this is our staff. We are a staff of about 17 professionals, which is probably the largest in this state. And what that says about an institution that financially supports a center such as ours means that the university is committed to that. So you can tell by the breadth and the depth of the team here. So next slide. Our vision, well, we have pretty ambitious visions. We just want to be the best. In the coming decades, CDR endeavors to become a leader in creating cultural shift in higher education, promoting disability as diversity and inclusive excellence. Next slide. So I want to talk in relation to the vision that goes into our mission and our purpose. So what you're going to understand about our center and how we view disability is really, it's going to be a cultural shift for you because you're coming from a K-12 setting, perhaps a special education setting that really did look at disability from a deficit perspective. And that is not at all how we view disability. The university, as well as our team, views disability in terms of diversity. It's an aspect of diversity, and we seek to promote that in every way that we can. So our mission is to engage the university community to empower students, enhance equity, and provide a platform for innovation and inclusion. We do this really by working with the environment, working with our faculty, working with the physical environment, the residential environment, to reduce barriers, because ultimately an inclusive environment doesn't require individualized accommodations. However, we recognize that that utopia doesn't quite exist yet, where there's no need for individualized accommodations, and we do obviously also provide those. Beyond the individual accommodations, we also have our ethos is beyond compliance. So you're going to be able to tell from as you listen to the rest of the folks talk today about the depth and the breadth of the resources and how we engage. Critical and as a centerpiece of how we view disability is we view it as an aspect of diversity. And so many of you might have heard that the university is in its process of doing an inaugural diversity plan. That diversity plan is diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. What that means is we will be one of the first in the nation to have a diversity strategic plan university-wide that is intentional about including disability as an aspect of diversity. So, and that plan will be in place by the time our fall semester starts up. So we're very excited about that. Next slide. When we think about disability and diversity and our approach really involves what we call a social justice. As I talked about in terms of special education, and it was a deficit model also conjures up as a medicalized model, meaning that it is the condition of the individual, the disability inherent in the individual, that becomes the problem. That's a medicalized model, and that's not how we view disability. We view it through this social lens, the social model, which means that the disadvantages or the restrictions or the barriers to access are caused by the environment, by the design of that environment. What does that look like in an academic environment? It could be classroom instruction. It could be the physical space. It could be exams, different things like that in terms of the educational environment. So it is not based on the individual student, it is looking at that environment. And that's why we seek to work with the entire community here at the university to reduce as many of those barriers and promote inclusion, which then fosters a sense of belonging. Next slide. Okay, just a little bit about our numbers. Interestingly enough, I was on the New York State site, and I don't know how many New Yorkers are here, but I was looking just in terms of the data and enrollment, and we're actually, I have to say, we're number 2 in the state in terms of the largest enrollment of students with disabilities or disabled students, and that's an interchangeable way that we talk about this. And you can see from when we started, the office actually started in 1999 all the way up until the last full academic year, how much we have grown and continue to grow. At as of last year, our numbers were 2,833. The other sort of graph pretty much shows the progression between the total students registered. So that's, you know, from first year all the way to our graduate and law students, and then just the new student registrations, and those continue to grow as well. So we're a vibrant office, and we have quite a bit of activity. Next slide. More about our numbers. So you can, if you want, you can kind of key in into your particular college that you're interested in. What we've done is we look at a comparison between the university, both at undergrad and graduate levels, and then their total populations based on the cohorts, and then what ours are. And so there's percentages associated. So nationally speaking, the average is close to about 20% of individuals with disabilities, you know, in post-secondary education, specifically undergraduate education. And you can see that, you know, and some of our colleges, we are very close to that norm, but in others, it's a little less. And what that says is that we have work to do in terms of breaking down, you know, stigma and attitudinal barriers that might have students not disclose, because one of the biggest barriers to access a lot of times in higher education is the fact that the individual student needs to disclose and self-identify in order to then receive the supports and accommodations. So we're doing fairly well, but we definitely have work to do, especially in depending on the particular school or college. Next slide. This is if there's a lot of numbers, so I apologize, but essentially we did bold out numbers in terms of our retention rates. So between the fall of 2019, starting with fall, of 2016 to fall of 2019, we're looking at either fall to fall retention rates, or we're looking at first year, second year, and third. And you can see pretty closely that our students do just as well as the general student population, right? And that is exactly what we want, right? It's a matter of mitigating these barriers so students can perform to the best. So the numbers should be, and there should be parity to these numbers. And, and actually in some cases we're slightly higher. So that's an interesting note, but our retention numbers are very good. And that says that the university is doing what it needs to do. Next slide. Okay, so I talked really quick because I really want to give the floor or the screen over to my colleague Judy Kopp. She's our assistant director. She's an expert, and she oversees our professional staff when it comes to our disability access counselors. She plays an integral role in that aspect, and she's going to get into some very specific information that will help you understand these transition points and how CDR works with our students. Judy?
Okay. Well, I hope the information that I share is some good stuff for you, probably stuff that the questions that you may have had. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, to expect and anticipate some differences that you'll have in college than you had when you were in high school. So those differences are going to fall under some of these areas like your own responsibilities, the student responsibilities, that's going to change. Your parents' role will change. I'm sure you're all looking forward to that a little bit. And the types of classroom and testing accommodations could be different than you had in high school. How you work with your instructors and the faculty in the university or in the college that you're in. Also, you're going to see differences in the classwork, in class and out of class. You'll see some differences than high school. Also, the level of academic support. We're hoping that the level of academic support at Syracuse University is going to be much broader than you may have experienced in high school. Maybe in high school, you sought some extra help from an outside tutor. Well, a lot of those resources are available through the university, some through our office and then some in other areas of the university. And of course, your schedule is going to be quite different. So there's a lot of things that are going to change for you. Next slide, please. So I'm sure everyone's interested in how to connect with our office. And the first thing that a student does is they identify, they register with our office. They can go to our website and go to the link and register. And this is open right now. So if you know that Syracuse is your choice school and you're coming here and you're going to register, do it at any time. If you haven't done so already, that's fine. And then the students will be assigned to an access counselor to have a welcome meeting, and that counselor will be your counselor for your time at Syracuse University. And we begin meeting with students in the summer. So we have a welcome meeting before you even arrive. In most cases, we can always meet when students are on campus. And students register throughout the year. They don't have to register in advance. They can register at any time. We're always getting new students that register with our office. So what we do in this welcome meeting is we engage in what we call the interactive process. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. It's a very important part of what we do. And you also learn how to request the accommodations that you're seeking. Sometimes you don't really know. So it's a conversation with you and your counselor. Some ideas you may already have in your mind of things that you think you're going to need and you want, and we talk about it. And then we also talk about the access to additional resources. So we really encourage students to communicate with their instructors, the faculty, other campus stakeholders like your academic advisor, people in, in student living all over the campus. And we try to help with that. And we continue to this interactive process with our students whenever it's needed. Next slide, please. Let me talk a little bit about the interactive process. Once you're assigned to an access counselor, when you register, the counselor and the student meet and they discuss the types of modifications or accommodations that are needed. This conversation and future conversations is the crux of your access plan. So the conversation that you have and what you talk about is the most important thing. It's more important than, if you've shared a 504 plan or an IEP or a letter from somebody. The conversation is the most important piece. And in what you are asking for, what you think you need, and what you learn about the university is the most important thing. So what we do to help you with that, because we understand that new students don't always know what questions to ask. The conversation follows the questions that are on the registration form. So if you haven't registered and you're going to register, answering the questions to the best of your ability right now and what you think the answers are right now is really important. But if you have any questions, we go over that with you one-on-one in that welcome meeting. And you have an opportunity to expand. A lot of times you forget to add things or you may not really understand what the question's asking. We get to that. So this welcome meeting begins that interactive process that's going to be ongoing with your access counselor. Next slide. So an important thing that you want to do is you're going to be creating an accommodation plan. So this accommodation plan or an access plan is what you might think of. I have a lot of students that come in and say, well, I have a 504 plan. Well, once you hit college, you had a 504 plan or you had an IEP, and now you're going to have an access plan. That's what's going to, delineate what your accommodations are. So the student and their access counselor create the accommodation letter during the welcome meeting. And the accommodation letter is going to be a tool that you can use to communicate with your faculty. We can send that letter directly to the faculty through our online system, through the faculty disability portal. And you will have access to the student disability portal. So you'll be able to see any letter that we've ever sent to you. You'll be able to do a lot of things. I'll share more information about that in the next couple of slides. So the accommodation letter is, you can renew it every semester, because every semester you're going to have new classes and new instructors. So your experience, it will shape your access plan. So your self-knowledge and what you already know about yourself is a really important aspect of this welcome meeting. And you have to remember that college level accommodations are talked about during this conversation, and they can be a little bit different than high school. Sometimes they're the same and sometimes they're different. So the student and the access counselor will create the accommodation letter based on your conversation, and they'll talk about effective means to address any access needs you may have. So the access counselor and the student talk about what worked well in high school and what you'll need at the college level. Things aren't always exactly the same. I can give a few examples of that. So sometimes when students are in high school, they may have like a test, like they might have, like for a test, they might have a study guide that's given to them as part of their accommodation. And they may come to us and say, I need study guides for every exam. Well, we can talk about how you might create them, because some professors will provide these and some will not. And when the when the professors don't provide them, the expectation is that you'll make your own study guide, and we can talk about supports to do that. But that would be an example of something that might be different in college. So the conversation that you have with your access counselor will also cover how these differences, are, and what might be needed, and what are some alternate means to ensure that you have equal access. And the key here is always equal access. We want your experience to be equal as other students in the classroom. Next slide, please. So your counselor works as an advocate for your access, and their role is to support and guide you in ensuring that you have equal access in your education. So the access counselors help the students find ways to communicate with with the instructors, with your advisors, and with other support people. So one of the things we want to do is we want you to know that we're here to support you in doing these things and help you to do these things yourself. So self-advocacy is a skill that all college students learn to develop. So it's everybody. It's not just disabled students. It is anybody coming into the college. It's a different experience for everyone. So very much like all students, we're here to support you in particular. We're another resource on this campus for you, and we're an excellent resource to help you do this. One of the things that we do like to talk to students with, quite a bit is how to approach instructors and how to talk to them about your accommodations. It can be intimidating. So the counselors can practice with you with this conversation. They can discuss ways that you can, approach and talk and go to office hours or send emails. And we talk about different strategies to initiate and engage with these instructors. Next slide, please. Okay, so some of the responsibilities are really shifting to the student when you hit college. So for instance, students have to give timely notice of a need. So if you need an accommodation, you request it. So in high school, a lot of times when students have a 504 or an IEP plan, that plan is in place, the year before. Once we set up this accommodation plan, it's going to roll every semester. It will roll forward. You don't have to change it or update things every semester. You can renew. But when you have a request, when you have a particular request that you need something, then you have to give timely notice and make sure that everybody has time to engage in the process of providing the accommodation or considering the accommodation. So some of your responsibilities too is sometimes we do ask that you provide documentation to establish the disability, to learn more about the disability. So there are ways for you to upload documentation on our portal. And we also ask that students engage in this interactive process with our center and also with the faculty and staff as appropriate. So, so for instance, when we say that we want students to engage, we want students to renew their letters and make requests and communicate what their needs are. And, basically let us know in a timely way if there's something that you need and you need to discuss it with your access counselor. So if you are a student that has testing accommodations, then it's your responsibility to make an appointment to if you're going to be taking the test with the Center for Disability Resources, you'll make it a sign up to do that. And that's your responsibility. And also it's your responsibility to make sure you notify of any concerns regarding, any problems and what you might be having in regards to your accommodations. So there's some examples there. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of resources. And if you look, there's these two columns. One is, the first column is our disability resource portal. That's our online system. And some of the resources that you can find within our portal are access to your accommodation letter. Your letters will always be there. This is the place where you can renew your accommodation letters, and we send directions to students on exactly how to do this and when to do this. This is a place where you can request supplemental or additional accommodations. This is where you make appointments with your access counselor, And this is also the place where you would sign up to come into the center to take an exam. In the other column, the access counselor is another resource, and your access counselor is going to help you to develop your plan. That person will be the liaison with you and your faculty, along with your academic advisor too. Your access counselor is there to provide advocacy, to help you with that transition to college, and also to mentor you about conversations with your faculty, and also will facilitate like any referrals. So for instance, if you feel like you need to go to the writing center, we'll help you with that process. Next slide, please. So another thing in our office that we do is we have some additional resources and referrals. So we have there's lots of new technology that you may be interested in learning and using. And so we have assistive technology training, and we also have a loan program, so we can loan students, for instance, a LiveScribe Smart Pen. That's one example. It's really popular. Then we also have accessible transportation for students who have particular mobility disabilities. We also have a learning assessment individual in our office who does screenings and evaluations. We have an honor society within our office, and we also work with career services. And one of the big programs that we work on is the workforce recruitment program that helps place students in jobs post-graduation. Next slide, please. And I think that's it. Karen is up next. Karen is going to talk more about some of our supports that we have.
Thank you, Judy and Paula. Yeah, go ahead, start the next slide. So in our academic support office, we kind of have two areas that we focus on. One is content tutoring. We have a couple tutors in math, physics, nutrition, and psychology. They're professional tutors. So if students had a need for tutoring in those courses, we could set them up for once-a-week appointments. In addition, we also work directly with CLASS. That's the Center for Learning and Student Success. That's a university-wide tutoring center. They're typically peer tutors, juniors and seniors. They've been vetted through a process of academic integrity and training. And those tutors typically cost between $15 to $25 an hour. But for students that are registered with our Center for Disability Resources and work with academic support, we have voucher codes. They're like gift cards up to $200 a semester. So that'll help supplement the cost. And in addition, there's hundreds of tutors at CLASS. So we'll help them connect with a tutor, set up the appointment. If they don't have a tutor for that particular course, they can let me know. I work with a supervisor over there. They reach out and find a tutor. So that's a great resource as well. In addition, the other part of what we do is a program called Time Plus. And basically this is general academic support. We have learning strategists in our office that meet with students once a week to work on time management, organizational skills, study strategies, maybe looking at some of the bigger projects and assignments to help the student get started with those and set up a plan. So it's very general support. It's not content driven, but it allows that student to have that accountability to meet with somebody once a week and kind of plan out what they have to do and when it's due and the best kind of time and space to get that done. In addition, they'll help students with maybe some self-advocacy, looking at a project and maybe guiding them with reaching out to the professor. As Judy was mentioned earlier, the university has great resources. As I mentioned, the tutoring center, the writing center is phenomenal. They have the math clinics, the physics clinics. There's a lot of TAs associated with classes that will help students. So all of these things are ways that our academic support office and learning strategists will help connect students to wherever they might need more academic support. Next slide. And though I should mention the tutors in our office and the learning strategist, there is no cost for that. That's part of our academic support unit. It's support we provide. It does fill up. It can fill up. So it's sometimes there could be a little bit of a wait time to get in to see somebody, but eventually we are able to work with all students that need that support. So in addition to those that I mentioned, we also have On Track at SU. This is a new program. We're in our second year. It's offering more enhanced support. And this is a fee-based service that involves working with a trained ADHD LD coach that involves twice a week appointments for 30 minutes. In addition, there's check-ins during the week. Some of the same skills are focused with time management, organizational skills, self-advocacy, but this program is really designed for students that need support with that transition to college, that first year transition. It's very holistic in nature. So you have this academic support piece, but in addition to that, it's that whole transition when you think about, in essence, they're managing their lives, right? You have the social emotional piece, connecting with other resources on campus, making connections to clubs and organizations, communication, self-advocacy, something as simple as making sure you're getting to bed on time because you have that 8 o'clock class. As Judy was mentioned with the class schedule, you don't have a designated time at 11 or 12 for lunch. You may have classes then. Are you, getting lunch or breakfast before you have that long day of classes? All these things that come into play that can really affect a student with that transition to college. So this program On Track is very holistic, as I mentioned. It's that whole piece of managing college. In addition, it involves coaching. So it's not directive. It's not someone sitting there saying, this is what you need to do, when you need to do it, how you need to do it. It has the coaching model philosophy of really asking those open-ended questions for students to really engage with themselves and learn about themselves as a college student. It's very collaborative. It's very student-driven. And this is, as I mentioned, a first-year program with the option for a second year. I will say with the On Track program currently right now, we only have a few limited openings. So there are only a few spots left. Having said that, we will take applications for the waiting list. Things are always fluid with us. And you can also get on our CDR website to learn more about this program, as well as the general academic support that I mentioned before. And next slide, I believe that is it for me. So we can put it out there for questions for anyone.
Yes, absolutely. So as we approach the question answer portion, out of sensitivity for all of our participants, if you do want to ask a question to have it answered live, feel free to mark it as anonymous, and then that way we can post it and answer it live. So we have had a couple questions come in. One was, do counselors work directly with academic advisors? So not sure if, I know that we covered some of this already, but do counselors ever have that one-on-one conversation with the student's academic advisor?
I can answer that question. Yes, we do work with the academic advisors, and one of the things that we attempt to do is assign students to a counselor that works closely with the particular college or program that they're in. Sometimes students change programs, and so, but they don't necessarily change their access counselor. But we get to know the folks in all the various colleges, and we work with them pretty well. We don't substitute what the academic advisors do. So our job isn't to help select classes and sequences, but we're just another resource to help. So like some of the questions we get from students about academic advising is help with deciding like how many classes to take in a given semester. Like, do you think this is a heavy load? Should I reduce my load? is this a good balance? Do I have a nice balance between like math, science type classes and writing, reading type classes? We help with that and when we need to, we help students who might need to schedule classes in a certain way due to their disability. We can assist with registration times when it's necessary.
Perfect. Thank you. We had another question about testing as far as the timeline. Is there a date by when the disability testing needs to be done in order to apply for accommodations?
Okay, I'll take that one because that really gets to our philosophy around how we view documentation. So one of the things that would be helpful is if you go to our website and you go under the student tab and you look at documentation requirements, it really does give some broad guidelines of how we view documentation. First off, it's really, when Judy was talking, it's that engagement and conversation. It's a very structured conversation that we have with students, and we ask very specific questions. And those questions are the questions we ask when you register with the office. That lived experience of the student and how they engage and how they're responding, and then we sort of prompt more questions, is part of documentation, right? That's part of it. The secondary is that it's what we observe as we ask questions back. We understand the environment here. We also look and ask about the history of the use of accommodations. And then at a tertiary level, it's that third-party documentation. So if the question is, we don't use documentation as a barrier to access, so there is no timeline. That said, what we do is that when there's a request for a student, and depending on the accommodation, we might seek additional third-party or outside documentation because of the particular accommodation that the student is requesting. But that's only because there's a gap in information. And so I think whatever is that you have from high school is a great place to just start. We don't really make recommendations in terms of anything having to be a certain age, and we don't use it as a gatekeeper.
Mm-hmm. So old documentation is acceptable. I think that's, to sum it up, it's acceptable, and that's for our purposes. Like, we can't always speak to beyond the university level. Like, for instance, yesterday I was helping a student who was filling out her application for the law school admissions test, the LSAT, and the LSAT was asking that documentation be done when the student was at least 13 years old, like over the age of, like, anything that was over the age of 13. So we don't have those requirements in our office. So if you were diagnosed at a very early age, we accept that. And then we also see the kind of accommodations you used through high school and what was affected. And that's really what's most important to us. What was effective to you most recently? And then moving into this new environment, what could you, can you expect?
Right. Well, we don't make the decisions for those high stake testing that happens after.
Right.
Great, thank you. We have another question about extended time on tests. How does this accommodation work? Do students take the tests in the classroom, or are there other means? I actually know the answer to this.
Do you want me to take this one?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Well, so right now we're in a totally different environment. These last 3 semesters have been, really different for the college students, and I'm sure for you as well. And so there have been a lot of online exams in these past 3 semesters, including this semester. But in the fall, we expect things to get back to, the way they were. So most students, when they have extended time on exams, they really need to have an alternate location to take the exam. So they make an appointment to take it in our office. And the goal is to take the exam whenever possible at the same time the class is taking it. So sometimes that means you might have to come in a little bit earlier to make sure you get your extended time, stay later, or sometimes it might mean that you have to organize like a later time of the day. But unlike high school, you can't like start an exam and then finish it in our office. Professors are going to want you to take that exam in one sitting in most cases, almost in every situation. So students make an appointment to come and take it in our office. And these are paper-based exams. Now, they're moving forward, there might be a lot of online exams. We can still proctor online exams through our office. We can set students up with a proctor. And sometimes we've seen a lot of faculty proctoring the online exams with the extended time.
The only thing that I'll add is when Judy's saying sign up, all aspects of our operations are online. So meaning that we have a delivery system, it's called Accommodate. And so when you go to our website and you click to register, that's actually a public facing form that feeds into our network. We are completely in every aspect of what we do is online. So when you're signing up through the portal. It's the Disability Resource Portal. And when faculty have an exam and it's in your class, they know because you've signed up and they get notice that you've signed up and then they upload the exam. So there's a lot of things that we make that are much easier to reduce the administrative burdens for students as well as for faculty. The application is web-based and mobile-based. So students we know live and do everything on their phone. So these things can be done on their phone as well. So it's not difficult. And we're happy to say that the construction has resumed post-COVID fairly soon, and we will have a new services area on the ground floor of Waverly. So we should have a pretty nice space and a quiet space for students to take exams.
Great, that's awesome. A couple questions for Karen about the difference between the fee-based program and the other accommodations that are offered. So how do the students sign up for the on-track program again? What do you mean by fee-based? And then what's the difference between the fee-based program and the free time management program?
Yeah, so to sign up for the on-track program, there is an application process. You can go to our CDR website under students and then on-track at SU. There's two things. You could fill out the application or an interest form. Either way, they both come directly to me, to my email, and then I'll reach out to the student for an informational session. For the general academic support, the Time Plus, there is no application for that. So you could just work with your access counselor, or when you get onto campus, just reach out directly to academic support once you've registered with the office and had your welcome meeting. So fee-based for the on-track program means for that particular program, there is a cost. It's $2,800 a semester, and there is an application process. For the general academic support, the Time Plus, there is no fee or cost for that. It's provided through our office. And as far as, I think the other question is, what's the difference? The on-track is much more intensive. It's more extensive. There's more touch points with multiple appointments per week, check-ins during the week through either email or texting. It's not as directive as far as it's more, as I mentioned, that coaching model of really engaging with the student in that coaching philosophy, having the student be engaged in the process of asking those open-ended questions and really learning about themselves. In addition, it is really designed more, and where I think the bigger piece is, it's really designed for students that need that support for that first year transition, not just the academics. If you're a student that just really thinks you need some academic support with time management, organizational skills, meeting with a learning strategist once a week would be extremely helpful. On-track is really for students that need more than just that academic support, the communication skills, the self-advocacy, the social emotional piece, connecting to clubs and organizations, maybe just, kind of having some support with, reaching out to make friends or ways to meet other people, all those things that come with that, not just the academic piece.
And is there a limit as to how many semesters a student could access either of these services, either the free weekly time management, organizational help, or the other on-track program?
So on-track is for first-year students only, and there is for those students that participate in the first year, they do have an option for a second year, less touch points. We're trying to pull back. Our goal is to create complete independence, and so it's only once a week appointments. It's half the cost. So after the second year, that would be it. Having said that, the general academic support meeting with that learning strategist once a week is available to any student during their entire college career, as long as they're registered with our office. So we've seen, you know, I've had seniors that have never engaged with our office at all, and it's first semester senior year, and the classes they're taking are a little bit harder to manage. So they'll reach out to our office, or they may come one semester and then a year later come again. And so for somebody in the on-track program, that's an option. If they still feel like they need a little bit more support, they could transition into their third, fourth year and on to meet with that learning strategist in the general academic support.
Great, thank you. So we had a question about the initial application. I think we've covered most of that, but there was a question about the application. Does it have to be renewed every semester, every year? And then also, can a parent attend the welcome meeting?
I'll take the first part, Judy, you take the second part with parent. How's that? So again, I mentioned that we have an online system where you start the process, and then we plan to start meeting with incoming students in June, and we'll be doing it in this virtual fashion. So, and then more than likely, you know, students will sort of maybe have a follow-up appointment with their access counselor, maybe in their first week or two, to sort of make that connection, especially if they're going to be using our services area as well, and the academic support area. Everything is done online. So the next semester, if all they need is the same accommodations they got the previous semester, once we open up the portal with the new semester, they just request online, and it happens electronically. So. Mm-hmm. Judy, parent question for you.
A parent question. So what I welcome the input from the parents, of course, but what I like to do in a welcome meeting is to have the welcome meeting with the student, do one-on-one with the student, and then we save time and invite the parents to come in, ask their questions. And another great thing that I like to do when I have a welcome meeting is just have the student then explain to the parent what they understood, you know, their what we determined, and oftentimes that they have a good idea of what their accommodations are going to be and what they talked about, and so parents do when they want to come into the meeting, but it's not required, and the counselors do like to have that one-on-one, and then invite the parents to come in. And we give you plenty of time to ask your questions. And we're available in other means, like, you know, and what we do though, too, is we always ask the students to give us permission to, you know, they'll sign a release so that we can talk to parents if they want us to. So we have a lot of students who sign releases, and sometimes they're very specific about what they can talk, what, you know, they would allow us to talk about. And you know, we use discretion as well with students.
Great, thank you. A couple questions related to class notes. So one being, are there accommodations for receiving class notes? And then another, do students have the accommodation to have everything typed, or in that same kind of question, instead of getting handwritten class notes, can they be typed?
Judy?
Sure. So that's a great question about class notes. And again, it's through that interactive process that we make the determination of what is necessary for access. So we have, one of the things that we have that a lot of high schools don't have is we have access to a lot of technology. So some of the things we really explore with all of our students is, well, how do you take notes? And you know, if you experience barriers taking notes, let's talk about that. So we go through a lot of different ideas about note taking, and if a student needs to have a peer note taker, then we hire a peer note taker to take notes. And if the peer note taker is hired and the notes, we do ask peer note takers to make sure those notes are in an accessible format, which means typed, so that they can be read by a screen reader too. So that is something, if we have a peer note taker, to do that. But we have a lot of options for note taking for students. So it's not a blanket accommodation where that we would just automatically get note takers for students. We look at other options as well. So that was the one question about note taking. Then there was another question. What was the other question?
So the student is wondering if everything that they turn in can be typed as opposed to handwritten. Is that part of, could that be worked out as an accommodation for the student?
With the students' work to be typed?
Yes, the students' work.
Well, yeah. So in most cases, work is typed. It's rare that it's handwritten these days. It's usually everything is typed.
Yeah, a little different than high school, but
right.
For everything to be typed. But
one thing where like handwriting is still used quite a bit is during testing. And so an accommodation can be for a student that handwriting is difficult, or if there is an instance of dysgraphia or something, we can make an accommodation that the students can use a computer to type their answers for an exam when other students may be handwriting exams.
Perfect. Thank you. And then there's one last question about study abroad, and it's a little specific to our Discovery Florence program, but I think it's good to kind of highlight whether or not these accommodations are available for students who may want to study abroad, either for a full semester or even a summer program abroad or something like that. So can you touch on that?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Paula.
Okay, yeah. So one of the things we mentioned is that with all the different access counselors in different areas, they're liaisons to the schools and colleges, but also different key offices, and one of them is Syracuse Abroad. So, and we're actually working on even sort of shoring up that relationship even better, so we can make sure the accommodations that have been sort of approved through the interactive process here at Syracuse, they do extend to the location. And for the most part, there's not too many issues in terms of it getting, implemented over there. But because we have a really close relationship with the director of Abroad, and we're looking at really having more of a touch in making sure that those accommodations are in place over there, it is that homeschool's responsibility to implement them. But ultimately, it's our students, so we want to make sure that those are in place. So one of the benefits of working with us is that you're going to have a lot of points of contact, but one of your very first points of contact is going to be your access counselor, and so that person is always available. So if something is sort of breaking down and you're in Italy, I would say take note of the time difference, but then you can still communicate with your access counselor, and we could still sort of help you navigate that. Just because you're abroad doesn't mean you're disconnected from us, thanks to technology.
That's so true. It's even easier now than it was when I studied abroad years ago. So that was it. That's all of our questions. If you have further questions, please feel free to reach out to our colleagues. We put the information and website into the chat. This has been recorded and will be available on YouTube tomorrow, so you can definitely check it out there. The telephone number for our office is also in the chat, and so please feel free to give us a call. We'd love to connect you with the Center for Disability Resources. If you have any further questions, again, reach out to the Office of Admissions. Karen, Paula, Judy, thank you all so much for your time tonight. I really sincerely appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to answer all these great questions that we've had. I hope everyone stays safe, stays healthy, and go Orange. Bye now.